Hello and welcome to Zeroization, the first stage of the mind upgrade program. I'd like to start with a story about wild or feral children. They've been lost or dumped in the wilderness. It's sad. Usually they manage to survive by living alongside with wild animals like wolves or monkeys. Such children have nothing human in them. They behave and act exactly like those wild animals they lived with. If found at age of 6, they're capable of learning language and socialize to some extent. However, there are cases reported of children being lost at age of 3 and found when they are 8 or 10 years old. Such children could never learn to speak and live human life. What conclusions could be drawn from the above? Well, feral children have same brain like you and me, but they've been programmed like animals, by animals. It also tells us that in general, this program or software could be different. Moreover, it could be clearly seen that after children reach age of 8 or 10 years old, it's almost impossible to change this program. So, if we could be brought up or programmed in such dramatically different ways, what if there's a superior software compared to the one that we are programmed with now? Think about that. For now, let's discuss language and its role in your thinking. We are going to look at the language as outdated, inefficient, and faulty code full of bugs or errors, and yet you're programmed with it. My experience tells that it's extremely hard to fully comprehend the above. That's why I just try to use to the idea of language as a software and your brain as a hardware. You was born clear from language. Yeah, you had roughly 100 billion neurons floating inside your brain. From all senses you could only differentiate motion and position in space. With time, your senses became sharper, hearing and vision improved. Neurons formed connections in visual and auditory cortex. You started to see clear from 9-month-old and hear from 6-month-old onwards. This is when you started to hear what your parents are saying, and language began to affect your brain. For example, you were told, "Look, this is car, the car is red." Here you have it. The line of verbal code has been put into your mind. This process is called ostensive definition in modern terms. So, car is red, a harmless line of verbal code. Parents just taught you name of the object and its color. But you were and still are able to see and therefore know all the colors the human eye could recognize. Approximately 10 million colors of different shape, hue, tint and tone. Parents could not possibly teach you colors. What they could teach you is the name of the color. And it's a big difference. Massive difference. They assign sound red to the object that you observed, which reduced 10 millions of colors in your mind to the basic 7. I know it's hard to believe, so just think about that. What colors do you know? I'm sure you wouldn't answer all of them. I see, and therefore know all the colors somehow got diminished by words. The problem is, same principles applies to emotions, feelings and other senses. Verbal code diminished it all to the basic view. It's a big loss. Language has made you blind. So, the very first time when you heard noises flying off your parents' mouth, car, red, these noises meant nothing to you. But neurons inside the auditory and visual cortex got activated in response to new stimuli. What happened there? Audio and visual signals got integrated. In other words, silent observation, just watch, just see, intervened by noise, car. This means that instead of activation centers responsible for processing of visual stimuli only, areas of the brain responsible for processing of auditory stimuli was activated as well. To the large extent, this intervention of vision by voice is what we call teaching. That's bad. Okay, anyway, once programmed, you cannot just see car anymore without having voice car in your mind. Moreover, sound car activates a group of neurons that are responsible for storing visual information that makes you see or imagine car. How vivid the imagination depends on the individual properties of the brain. I am aware that this is an oversimplified version of what's going on inside your brain. Nevertheless, it's exactly what we need to understand how language affects our minds on the very fundamental level. Now, and this is the most important part of this lecture to understand. What happened when you heard words that don't stand for objects or events in the physical reality? Words that stand for nothing that you could have seen. You have memorized those words and started to operate with them in your mind as if they are as real as words that represent objects from surrounding world. It's a massive problem. Big problem. A mess. At some point, and we're talking about when you was 3, 4 years old, you started to speak. Imagine that. Imagine you said, "Look, Daddy, a car is very fast. I am fast too." The problem is how much from what had been said was actually understood by you. The deal is, rather than just repeat it, the deal is that both way of learning and teaching forms the habit of using words, the meaning of which is not known and vague, and further use those words for thinking, what results in false sense of knowing. So this false sense of knowing is otherwise called beliefs. We are programmed to believe from an early age. You had no choice but to believe. Oh, beliefs, they're so important to us. But why? How primitive is that? Now, instead of saying, "I believe in this and that," say, "I have a false sense of knowing about this and that." And this is a game changer, my friend, for your own interest. And it's very hard to get done. Even such simple requests to replace one word, believe, with the phrase false sense of knowing. Remember, it's almost impossible to change the program after the age of 10. I assume you're older than that, so it's not going to be easy, my friends. Do you know the meaning of word fast? I'm sure that you believe that you do. Now, can you explain phenomena of speed, motion, mass, velocity and time? All the terms used to explain a word fast. No, you don't. Don't take it personally. Nobody does. That's the point. Nobody does. For example, time. Time defined as the indefinite continued progress of existence of events in the past, present and future, regarded as the whole. What? What the hell does it mean? And I'm sure you believe that you know what is time as well, don't you? Do you know what is time? In your mind, reality got mixed up with beliefs to the extent that you cannot tell the difference between the two. This is very important to understand. Car exists, so time exists. Car exists in space and time, we say. Real thing, car, put in the same line with abstract things like time and space. In other words, time and space are as real to you as car or any other object. Hope by now you understand that it's a big mistake. It's an error. Now, can computers operate on errors, unreadable, faulty software or code? No. Same applies to you. It should apply to you, but however, most of the people go through all their lives without even knowing that their code was messed up. In programming slang, it's a bug called Hydra. Hydra, a bug that, when an attempt to fix is made, introduces 2 new bugs. Effectively, it's a bug that cannot be fixed. I tend to look at the language as Hydra. Words explained by words, that explained by words, and so it goes. Errors explained by errors. It's a disaster. Disaster. I know it's hard to comprehend this, but it's a big mess. As you know, language involved in all aspects of our life. Education, law, communication, relationship, entertainment, science, finance and money. The whole world runs on language. We love to talk and hardly ever stop. Even more, we hate silence, and if there's no one to talk to, we talk to ourselves. Bloody hell, we talk to pets. It's funny. Apart from the part that it's not funny. Has it ever came across your mind that it's a massive problem? We talk to pets, to animals. For example, thinking of the way of having inner dialogue implies replicating a mild form of schizophrenia. What? Then you know that feeling when you're stuck with one thought, self-complaint or regret, and it goes round and round and round. What's the point? Besides, you cannot control this process. If you think about this, the only pressure you got in life is the one that you put on yourself. And it happened to be, guess, self-talk. So the verbal code works against you. Besides, your brain doesn't understand language at all. Real you, your body, your brain doesn't understand abstract you, your thinking, your desires, your plans. None of it. The hardware cannot read the software. You don't have to blindly believe what I say. Try it. Give yourself commands. Like sleep or relax. Stop eating. Or quit smoking. And you will quickly realize that it doesn't work. You know this, you know. Moreover, self-talk doesn't switch your brain on. Because verbal code has not much to do with reality. And your brain requires input of real information in order to be switched on. That's why many people prefer movie or video games to reading books. At least they see something other than text. And I don't blame them. Well done, guys. Well done. To sum up, from early age we've been programmed with language, but by integrating audio and visual signals in our brains. This integration or intervention of vision by voice, otherwise called teaching, is very misleading. It programmed your mind to operate with beliefs and fictions. Words that stand for nothing at all have been confused with words that stand for objects and events from the real world to the extent that you cannot tell the difference between the two. It could be compared to the faulty computer software full of bugs and errors, which would not work on the machine and yet it works at you. We've learned on the example with feral children that people could be programmed in very much different ways. Wild children programmed like animals by animals. You are programmed with primitive software based on language, undefined terms, beliefs, fictions and self-talk. Mind Upgrade is incomparably superior software that you could be programmed with instead. We also learned that it's very hard to change this program after a certain age, so it's not going to be easy, my friends. Zeroization is effectively uninstalling this old software, bringing it down to zero. It's based on the principle that you will inevitably break the rules of the language game and become free to disobey, once those rules are clearly understood by you. In our case, once you're fully aware of how verbal code is working in your mind and fundamental problems related with it, you would develop desire and find ways of getting rid of this primitive verbal software. With my help, of course. That's it from me, and the best is still to come. Thanks for listening, guys. Bye.